Hello! Let's explore the Intelligent Rule Recommendations feature introduced in version 25.Chicago release. Let's begin by understanding the business need. Birthright rules help organizations automate access provisioning and deprovisioning. However, creating new rules is often time-consuming and manual, requiring reports, spreadsheets, and extensive analysis. Organizations need an easier way to quickly identify and build impactful birthright rules to achieve their automation goals. Now, let's look at the solution. Enabling this capability will enhance Savynt's intelligent recommendations offering, making it more valuable and compelling by simplifying configuration, reducing manual effort, and accelerating automation adoption. It solves the critical problems that organizations face when creating birthright rules by drastically reducing the manual effort required for identifying and creating the right rules. Let's first understand the key benefits of using the birthright rule recommendations. By utilizing this feature and creating more birthright rules, employees within the enterprise will receive instant access through automated birthright provisioning, eliminating the manual delays associated with requesting access and waiting for approval. As access given through birthright rules can be reviewed independently, this can help minimize the number of items that need to be certified during access reviews, thereby reducing the workload and fatigue experienced by reviewers. As user roles or attributes change, birthright rules can be set up to automatically remove access based on user attribute changes, thus preventing privilege creep and ensuring least privilege compliance. Let's explore the business value from each of these key benefits. The capability boosts productivity by automating access provisioning and reducing manual administrative effort. Increases certification efficiency by reducing the number of line items to review. Reduces the overall enterprise security risk by automatically deprovisioning access when it's no longer required. Here is a recap of the current jobs that need to be executed to make recommendations during access requests and certifications. While the recommendations job is needed for request recommendations, the output of the recommendations job must be processed by the outlier analysis job to generate the peer access trust signal, which can then be combined with other trust signals in the trust modeling job to generate the final trust score to be shown in cert recommendations. Here is a summary of what each job does. Recommendations job performs peer analysis to generate recommendations for entitlements and roles. This job performs in-layer analysis required for generating request recommendations. The outlier analysis job conducts outlier analysis for entitlements and roles, generating the peer access trust signal required for the trust modeling job. Trust modeling job combines the peer access trust signal with other trust signals, such as SOD analysis, etc., to generate a trust score for certifications. The new birthright rule recommendations feature is delivered through the rule recommendations job, which intelligently analyzes the output of the recommendations job to suggest new birthright rules that can be created. Therefore, birthright rule recommendations can be generated by running the rule recommendations job after executing the recommendations job. The process of generating birthright rule recommendations involves two steps. Step 1 is to run the recommendations job. Please note that all the relevant settings for the recommendations job are important. The critical settings for this job include the user attributes to generate recommendations, the exclusion criteria to restrict which access is analyzed, the possible approval confidence threshold, and the minimum user threshold. Step 2 is to run the rule recommendations job. The settings for the rule recommendations job are also located in the intelligence section of global configuration. There are two key settings for this job: confidence threshold and coverage threshold, which will be explained shortly. Step 1 is to run the recommendations job. The key configurations in the recommendations job that are most relevant to the birthright rule recommendations are as follows. The first is the Enable Intelligent Recommendations and Trust Modeling setting, as this is the global setting that must be enabled before running the recommendations job. The second is the User Attributes settings, which determines the user attributes that are used to generate the birthright rules. Step 2 is to run the rule recommendations job. The two critical settings that govern the rule recommendations job are the confidence threshold and the coverage threshold. Confidence threshold sets the percentage of users who satisfy the rule condition and have the entitlements included in the proposed birthright rule. Setting this threshold to a higher value increases the accuracy bar that a proposed birthright rule has to clear and will therefore decrease the recommended birthright rules. Coverage threshold sets the percentage of users with an entitlement who are covered by a proposed birthright rule for that entitlement to be included in a proposed rule. As with the confidence threshold, setting this threshold to a higher value will decrease the overall recommended birthright rules. We have introduced a new UI page where you can view the recommended birthright rules. At the top of the page, 4 KPIs provide the administrators with the overall status of the recommendations, rules, and the impact that these rules have on saving employee time. Below is an explanation of each KPI. Pending recommendations provides the number of rule recommendations shown on this page. The assigned access quantifies the approximate number of account entitlements that form the basis of these rules. Active recommended rules specifies the rules that have been created from the recommendations and lists the corresponding account entitlements that have been provisioned through these rules. Total active rules specifies all the birthright rules present in the environment and lists the corresponding account entitlements provisioned by those rules. Workforce time saved computes the approximate waiting time saved by the active recommended rules based on the average approval time for a request and the number of requests saved in a given environment through the active recommended rules. Let's identify the critical components present in each rule recommendations. Rule condition specifies the user attribute condition that forms the basis of the rule. Each recommended rule is displayed with its key performance indicators, KPIs, enabling users to assess its effectiveness and make informed decisions. Rule entitlements specifies the entitlements that will be part of the recommended rule. Included users specifies the number of users to whom the rule applies. The high or medium or low impact label is determined based on the number of included users. Yearly requests represent the number of yearly requests recorded for any of the entitlements in the proposed birthright rule. This metric helps gauge the potential impact of the rule by indicating the number of access requests raised in the past year by users who match the rule's attribute conditions and requested entitlements. If the customer is not using Savynt's access request, then this metric will always display as 0. View Details option navigates to the Rule Details page, where additional information about the rule can be viewed, and it can be activated as a birthright rule. In the Rule Details page, users can remove entitlements from a particular proposed birthright rule before proceeding to create the rule. The page currently does not allow editing of the rule condition or adding new entitlements. These tasks can be done later in the existing technical rule interface once the birthright rule has been created from this screen. This page also allows the rule creator to display the users with each entitlement. This page can also display the users who satisfy the rule condition and do not have a particular entitlement, which can be done by setting the Access Status filter. Let's understand more about the Access Status filter. Access Status displays users who meet the defined condition and indicates whether they currently hold or do not hold a specific entitlement. It enables administrators to review access before activating a rule. The widget lists users matching the rule criteria for each entitlement as follows. First, present. Users who satisfy the rule condition and already have the entitlement. Next, absent. Users who satisfy the rule condition but do not currently have the entitlement. Additional details regarding the user and entitlements can be seen on the right-hand side panel by clicking on that specific user or entitlement. This is how it appears when we click on an entitlement. A Details panel appears displaying information such as entitlement type, entitlement description, endpoint name, etc. This information helps administrators verify the entitlement details before converting the recommendation into a rule. Additional details regarding the user can be seen on the right-hand side panel by clicking on that specific user. Under a specific entitlement, it represents the list of users who match the condition of the rule. They may or may not have the entitlement, which is indicated by access status. A dialog is displayed to activate a recommended rule. As mentioned earlier, the created rule will appear on the technical rules screen. The user who creates the rule is marked as the owner by default. However, ownership can be manually reassigned to another user from the technical rules screen after the rule is created. While some advanced options are available in the UI, additional options can be accessed through the technical rules interface. Rules created from this screen do not trigger any rule approval workflows that may be configured. The Activate Rule button allows the administrator to convert this recommended rule into an active birthright or technical rule. There are two new features that control access to the Rule Recommendations page. As highlighted, these features are Rule Recommendations, View, and Rule Recommendations, Edit and Activate. These two features can be added to SAV rules to provide access to the Birthright Rule Recommendations functionality. The first feature allows a user to view the rule recommendations without being able to take any action on any recommendations. The second feature allows a user to both view the recommendations and take actions to remove entitlements from a proposed rule and activate the rule. Two new microservices, the Intelligence Microservice and the Rule Recommendations Microservice, support the Birthright Rule functionality. Logs from each microservice can be viewed on the Log Viewer page by selecting the respective service and used to identify any errors generated while running these capabilities. Logs related to the Rule Recommendations job appear under the Rule Recommendations microservice, while errors encountered when viewing rule recommendations originate from the Intelligence Microservice. Let's look at the demo of the Intelligent Rule Recommendations feature introduced in version 25.Chicago release. When you access the Rule Recommendations page, you can view all the rule recommendations that have been discovered and generated by the Rule Recommendations job. At the top of this page, you will see some critical KPIs. The first KPI is Pending Recommendations, which shows the number of recommendations currently listed in the system. Active Recommended Rules KPI displays the number of recommended rules created from previous recommendations. The Total Active Rules KPI indicates the total number of active rules in your system. And finally, the Workforce Time Saved displays the amount of time saved by the recommended rules created in your environment. Below, you can see all the individual rule recommendations that have been suggested. For each rule recommendation, we have included a rule condition that specifies attributes and attribute values, as well as the entitlements that should be part of that rule. You also have the included users metric, which specifies the number of users on whose basis this rule recommendation was generated, as well as the number of yearly requests that have been observed for the entitlements included in this rule recommendation. These metrics can serve as the basis for determining whether this rule should be created or not. You can also search for specific attributes in this search bar, which shows you other rule recommendations that have that particular attribute value. Click View Details to review the specific rule recommendation. You can see the condition at the top as well as the entitlements. You can expand each entitlement to view the users who satisfy both the above conditions as well as those who have that specific entitlement, which is recorded in the access status as present. You can filter out those users who satisfy the above condition but do not possess this entitlement by selecting the access status as absent. This gives you a good idea in terms of the users who satisfy the rule and the users who do not satisfy the rule. You can also remove any specific entitlement that you do not want to be included as part of this rule. To view more details for the entitlement, click on it, and the details will be displayed in the right-hand side panel. Similarly, for any particular user, you can click on the user, and the additional details regarding that user are shown on the right-hand side panel. Once you are satisfied with a particular rule, you can click Activate Rule. You will need to provide a rule name and description. You can also use the advanced options and then save and activate the rule. Once this rule is created, you can access it from the Technical Rules page and also create other rules based on the recommendations you see here. To configure the rule recommendations, navigate to the Global Configuration page and In the Intelligence section, turn on the Enable Intelligent Recommendations and Trust Modeling setting. Then, provide the other required settings, such as user attributes. You will also need to provide 2 additional settings that pertain to rule recommendations, such as the confidence threshold and coverage threshold, as shown here. After these settings have been set, you can navigate to the Job Control panel and first run the recommendations job. And after the recommendations job has finished running, you can then create a trigger for a rule recommendations job and execute that to generate the recommendations that have been shown in the rule recommendations page. Thank you for watching.